In 1841, Virginia, as laughter echoed inside a grand plantation manor, Mary, the enslaved servant, poured poison into her master's cup. Minutes later, as he writhed in agony, she locked the doors of the house, leaving him and his legacy to rot inside. Mary was young, barely into her 20s, yet her life had already been carved by chains. She was born into bondage, raised not by choice but by command, forced to serve inside the manor of one of Virginia's wealthiest planters. To the outside world, the master's home was a symbol of refinement. Polished floors, glittering chandeliers, and feasts that impressed neighbors for miles. But for Mary, it was a prison. Every hallway echoing with orders, every room another reminder that she owned nothing, not even herself. Her master was a man of wealth and cruelty. Proud of his lineage, arrogant in his power, he measured his success in acres of land, in barrels of tobacco, and in the number of enslaved lives under his control. His voice could fill a hall with laughter one moment and crack with rage the next. For Mary and the others he enslaved, his moods were law. If he decided to punish, he punished. If he decided to take, he took. And there was nothing anyone could do. The plantation itself was a portrait of contradiction. Beyond the manor's gleaming windows, fields stretched wide, worked from dawn until dusk by men, women, and even children. Their bodies bent under the sun, their sweat soaking the soil that made the master rich. But inside the house, where Mary served, the air smelled of polished wood, roasted meats, and imported wine. The planter's world was one of luxury built on broken backs. For Mary, life was a cycle of endless labor and humiliation. From the moment she rose, she scrubbed, polished, carried, and bowed. She set tables she would never eat from, prepared food she would never taste, and cleaned messes made by those who mocked her very existence. The master often called her forward just to berate her, shaming her in front of guests, mocking her clothing, or striking her if a task was not done quickly enough. But cruelty went deeper still. The master believed he owned not only Mary's labor, but her very body. She lived in constant fear of his hand on her shoulder, his footsteps behind her, his demand that she enter his room. He robbed her of safety, of dignity, of the small peace of being unseen. And when punishments fell on others, Mary was forced to watch. She saw whippings tear into backs, heard the screams of men begging for mercy, and knew that at any moment she could be next. Each day chipped away at her spirit, yet each day hardened her resolve. The plantation was meant to break her. Instead, it forged something else, a quiet, burning defiance. By 1841, Mary had already endured years of torment. And then something happened, an act of cruelty so sharp it left her teetering on the edge. Some say it was the loss of a child, ripped from her arms and sold. Others whisper it was a beating so severe she could not move for days. Whatever it was, it pushed her past endurance. From that moment forward, Mary began to plan. Her master believed himself untouchable, but Mary saw the truth. He was a man who ate, who drank, who trusted her to bring him what sustained his life. That trust would become his undoing. Poison. It was a weapon unlike any whip or chain. Silent, invisible, capable of moving through a meal without notice until it was too late. Mary began to search, carefully, quietly. A trace of powder from the storeroom. A crushed leaf she had learned from whispers could sicken a man. Over weeks, perhaps months, she gathered enough to prepare a dose strong enough to end his life. Every step was dangerous. If she was discovered, the punishment would be unthinkable. But she pressed on, driven by a determination stronger than fear. And then the night arrived. The master was hosting a feast, a gathering of wealthy planters and their wives, a night meant to display his wealth and cement his reputation. The house glowed with candlelight. The dining table stretched long, covered in white cloth, silver platters, and crystal glasses. The air was thick with the smell of roasted meats, spiced vegetables, and sweet pies cooling in the kitchen. Guests filled the hall with laughter. Boots tapped against polished floors, skirts rustled as women leaned close to gossip. Wine was poured freely, glasses clinked, and the sound of music drifted faintly from the far room. Mary moved silently through it all, her face calm, her hands steady, hiding the storm that raged inside. To the guests she was invisible, just another servant, carrying dishes, bowing her head. But beneath her apron she carried something far deadlier than any weapon. When the master called for more wine, Mary stepped forward. She poured with practiced grace, the crimson liquid glinting in the candlelight, and as she did, she tipped in the powder she had concealed, stirring it in silence. Her master, too arrogant to suspect, too certain of his control, lifted the glass with a laugh and drank deeply. For a few moments, nothing changed. Conversation flowed, knives scraped against plates, laughter echoed. Mary continued her work, her expression unreadable, but inside, her heart pounded with each beat of the clock. Then it began. The master's voice faltered mid-sentence. He coughed once, then again, louder. Guests turned, puzzled as his face reddened. His hand clutched at his throat. He gasped, choking, the sound raw and desperate. The room froze as he lurched forward, knocking over his glass. Wine spilled across the white cloth, mixing with the first drops of blood from his bitten tongue. Panic erupted. Women screamed. Men jumped to their feet. Chairs scraped against the floor. Some rushed to his side, calling his name, while others recoiled in fear. He collapsed against the table, convulsing, eyes bulging as the poison burned through his body. His laughter was gone, replaced by the grotesque sound of gagging and choking. And in that moment of chaos, Mary made her final move. She stepped swiftly to the great doors of the manor, the very doors guests had walked through with pride just hours earlier. With steady hands, she pulled them shut. The heavy wood boomed as it closed. She slid the bolts into place, locking them from the outside. The screams grew louder as realization spread. Guests rushed to the doors, pounding, shouting, demanding to be let out. But Mary stood on the other side, the cold night air brushing her face, the sound of their terror muffled but clear. She did not move. Inside, the master writhed, his hands clawing at the tablecloth as his strength drained away. His guests shrieked in horror, trapped with him, forced to watch his agony. The house that once symbolized power had become his tomb, sealed by the very woman he believed beneath him. For Mary, it was not just murder, it was justice. Justice for the years of humiliation, the stolen bodies, the broken families. Justice for every lash of the whip, every night of fear, every scream in the fields. In that locked manor, Mary reclaimed her power. What happened after that night is pieced together only in fragments. Some accounts say Mary fled into the woods, vanishing into the darkness before the household could catch her. Others insist she was captured within days, dragged before a mob, and executed in a spectacle meant to terrify others into submission. However her life ended, one truth is certain. Mary's act sent shockwaves across Virginia. For the planter elite, it was a nightmare realized. The very servants they trusted most, the ones who cooked their food, poured their wine, tended their children, could be the ones to betray them. Fear spread like wildfire. Suddenly, every cup of wine, every bite of food carried a shadow of suspicion. For the enslaved, Mary's name became a whisper of defiance. Her courage, her willingness to strike back was passed from mouth to mouth in secret, a story told in hushed tones around fires at night. She had done what many dreamed of, but few dared. She had turned her master's own table into his grave. History tried to bury her. Planters did not write her name in ledgers or memorials. Newspapers may have reported the crime briefly, but official accounts sought to erase her memory, to make her vanish as if she had never lived, never fought back. But silence cannot erase courage. Mary's story, though half lost, survives as a fragment of the greater truth. that resistance lived in every plantation, in every enslaved heart. Whether by flight, by quiet sabotage, or by deadly defiance, enslaved people found ways to reclaim pieces of their humanity. Mary's act was extreme, but it was not meaningless. It was a declaration that even within chains, the spirit of defiance could not be extinguished. Mary's story reminds us that even within the darkest cages, the human spirit burns with defiance. This was her act of vengeance. But there are countless other stories history has buried. If you want to hear more hidden slave stories that history tried to silence, watch this playlist here, and don't forget to subscribe. Some voices cannot be silenced. Some flames cannot be put out.